Welcome back to today's episode. We are talking about the 20 lessons we learned from managing money. We meaning Chris. I did not spend a decade of my life doing this, but he has dedicated a great amount of time helping people in the finance sector. Today is the Friday episode. If you don't know how our podcast works, on Monday, we talk about the episode, and on Friday, we recap the episode. This is the recap of part 1 of the 20 lessons we learned from managing money. Chris, happy Friday. Happy Friday. I know we're both kind of tired a little bit, but hey, it's Friday. The weekend's coming up, and I'm excited for that. I'm very excited for that, actually. Oh, man. How have you been, Chris?
I just got back from my vacation to New York last night, so it's been a fun time, but now I need a vacation from my vacation, so I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, you're just gonna sleep the weekend away. Just get a nice 12-hour session in. That'd be perfect. That'd be honestly the best thing for the both of us.
That's my plan.
Yeah, honestly, I love it. So we're going to be recapping all 10 points. It's going to be a little bit of a rapid fire. Then we're going to be doing a viewer mailbag. This is a juicy one, so stick around for the viewer mailbag at the end of the episode. And we'll finish off with a little win of the week, which is going to be a pretty nice time. With that being said, let's get right into it. Number 1. What do we got, Chris? What do we got?
Number 1 of some of the things I've learned over the past 10 years managing money is experiences shape your perspective of risk, or your perspective, whatever word you want to use there. But what I really meant to get across with that is that life experiences can really alter your appetite for risk, especially when you're facing significant financial events. So what I mean by that is people who were born during the Depression, the Great Depression, are always going to remember that. They're always going to hide money under their beds. They're always going to try to be concerned. People that saw the great housing collapse of 2008 are always going to be a little weary of real estate.
Absolutely.
Because they've seen it like that.
Yeah, 100%. Especially, we talked a lot about how an impact of a financial crisis when you're younger, that pivotal moment of like between 4 and like 10 years old, when you really are just soaking up everything around you, and your parents or a relative might have a massive financial event happen for them that really leaves an impact on their life, and it can shape the trajectory of their whole life. I mean, on this podcast, we've mentioned a few times how when you were younger, your dad was telling you that the market crashed, we might lose everything, when in fact, like, he didn't even have any money in the market, right? So while your house wasn't at risk, that was the perceived notion about what he said, and that impacted your entire life. And I think that's so interesting how it can shape. You really got to be careful what you tell the children, I guess, because they'll soak it up and remember it forever. So make sure to say good things to them, and teach them good lessons. But yeah, it's amazing. Like, without that 30-second interaction with your father, who knows, you might not even went into finance, and learned more about it, and really gotten deep into it, and really gotten to the psychology of why you are, and who you become because of your experiences in life. And I think that's so interesting. So I'm sure multiple people can go back and be like, oh, this is why I think like this. This is why this justifies me to think like this. It's like, oh, okay. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to do like a reverse origin story, I guess, like a proper regular origin story on yourself. But yeah, that would be number 1. Experiences shape your perception of risk.
Yep, perception of risk.
Perfect.
And yeah,
perfect.
I think you're right there. Like, most people's money memories is formed by the time they're 7 years old. And by the time you're 7 years old, I would say the first 3 years of your life, you're really not impacting much of anything or remembering much of anything, at least consciously. So much of it's coming in those latter 4 years where you're getting so many inputs into your brain as to how money works. Or do we live in an abundance, or is it scarcity? All of these things are happening so quickly and all in short order. But it's crazy how just those 4 years can shape the remaining 70 or 80 or however many years you have left.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's unbelievable what can happen. I wish, part of me wishes that we were a sponge like that our whole life, in a way. At the same time, I don't want to remember all the bad moments of life, but I want to soak up all the good moments. But I'm happy with who I am, and I'm glad that we're continuing on that path. But that was number 1. Experiences shape your perception of risk. And you've kind of found in your decade that people who are younger, they tend to be a lot more riskier than, say, people that are older. Is that because of their time horizon, or why do you think that is?
Yeah, well, you have to remember that whenever you're looking at how much risk is you should take as an individual, and you look at the stage of life you're in, you look at the time horizon, your financial circumstances, and then most importantly, your goals. So obviously, someone who is younger, their stage of life is accumulation. They're just trying to grow as much money as they can. Also,
Mhm.
their time horizon is 30, 40, 50 years away. So they can take on substantially more risk with the knowledge that it's okay if something goes wrong because I have time to make it back up.
Yeah.
But someone who is in retirement, well, they're at a different stage of life. They're at the stage of preservation. They just want to keep that money going for them. The biggest fear for someone who's about to retire is running out of money. And then their time horizon is no longer 20, 30, 40 years in the future. It's like right freaking now,
Yeah.
maybe a few years out, and then their financial circumstances is very different. They no longer have the future. They no longer have that income ability of generating more income by working hard. They've already done all their work. Now their
Mhm.
goal is to stop working. So they have different goals, different financial situations, different time horizons, different stage of life. Everything is different.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a crazy place to be in when you're at the end and you're just out. That sucks. That's why we plan. That's why we have the personal aspect of personal finance to really get you to that finish line with more in the tank than you need. And I love that.
Mhm.
I love that a lot. So, number two, we talked a little bit about how intelligence doesn't always guarantee investment success. Sometimes it has a little bit of a counter effect, even. Is that right
Yeah.
on the money? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right on the money. Oftentimes, what I found is that emotional intelligence is the most important part of being a successful investor. And oftentimes, the person that is the most book smart is
Mhm.
often not the most emotionally intelligent person. And you can think back to when you were in college or in high school. You all knew that one kid who was getting straight A's every time, but like couldn't speak to somebody to save their life.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they didn't have to study and they just aced it all. And it's like, damn, that must be nice.
Yeah. And I find that people that are over intelligent, like extremely intelligent book wise, they either fall into one of two extremes. Number one, they overanalyze every single investment decision before they make any choice. They're trying to take out all uncertainty. And when you're thinking about investments, when you're thinking about the future, all of it is uncertain because no one has a crystal ball. Or they'll go to the opposite extreme where they think that they're so correct that anything that challenges their belief, they automatically write off, saying like, "Oh no, they're not as smart as me. I have some profound knowledge because of how well I've done through my whole life in school." But just because you've done well in school, that does not mean that you're going to be a good investor. Same thing
No,
as just because you're the best doctor, best dentist, best whatever, that does not mean you're also going to be a good investor. The skills do not transfer.
no. And I think part of the reason why they think it might transfer is because they associate their success in every area of their aspect, every area of their life. It's like, no, I'm not someone who is a great doctor or great at school. It's like, I'm just someone who is a successful person and I can do anything. And while on one hand, I vibe with that, I get that, I love that. I love that mindset, right? But we're not talking about selling cookies at, you know, at a bakery fair. Hey, we're talking about basically gaming the market in a way that millions of other people are also doing it. It's just it's too big to try and beat, is what we're kind of prophesizing with that one, correct?
Yeah, well, the hard part about it is that these people that like are very intelligent and have worked hard their whole life, they're
Mhm.
100% correct in that in most aspects of life, if you want to advance, if you want to do better than other people, you need to put in more work. The person that got the best SAT scores often is because they studied their ass off to get there. But when it comes to investing, it's one of those few, if only, things I can think of that putting in more time, more effort, more work often yields a worse result.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's like the analysis paralysis of the decision. You just have too much information, and you just not end up making any of the decisions, or just the wrong decision at the end of it.
Yeah. And that really leads us into point number three, and that is that investing is hard. And acknowledging that it's difficult can actually simplify the process for some people because too many people, they get overwhelmed by the vast amount of knowledge they have to be able to figure out before they feel they can even start to begin to invest. So just by acknowledging that, yeah, this is difficult and it's very, very deep. So rather than focusing on literally everything, how about you focus on a few key principles instead? Try to focus on what's most important and then just go from there. You don't need to figure out everything before you start. In fact, the
No,
more time that you stop or delay it until you figure out whatever the secret is, the less time that you actually have to start living your life.
absolutely. I agree with that 100%. 100%. You know, we look at the stock market and say, oh, it can only go up or it can only go down. It's only one way or the other. It's like, that is such a simplistic way of looking at it. And it's such a naive way of looking at it at the same time. Because while it only can go up or down, you also have to pick the right one. And there's so many. And it's just buy an index fund, guys. Just buy an index fund with low fees, set it and forget it. You'll be good. But I highly recommend anybody to go do their own research on what a personal plan looks like for you, because my plan and your plan are not the same plan because we're not the same person. So yeah, or you can hire someone like Chris, who's way smarter and dedicated a decade of their life towards that area, right? You know, if I needed heart surgery, I'd want someone like Chris, right? Who's dedicated, put in the time, very disciplined, and I know is going to take care of me. But you want to reach
I
out
don't
to
think
him.
you want me anywhere near your heart.
No, not for the heart surgery, maybe, but for the finance, yeah, definitely. Where can people find you, Chris? Where can people find you?
Yeah, they can always go to monzonwealth.com. That's MONZON wealth.com. Or Chris at monzonwealth.com would be a good email if you want to shoot that. Or just connect here at the Fi Guys. You can always reach out. Leave it in the comments, and then I'm sure Dominic will tell me.
Yep. The Five Guys Video Podcast at gmail.com is also another great way to reach out to us. And since we're promoing, I'm going to continue to promo. Make sure to follow the podcast. If you're not already following, feel free to share it, like it, follow, rate it, all that fun stuff. With that being said, let's get back to what we were already getting into. Were we on point 2? Were we on point 3? Were we on point 4? Are you listening, listener? Am I listening? I don't know. Let's see. So, point number 4, overthinking.
Overthinking can be just as debilitating as not thinking at all.
Oof. Overthinking can be just as debilitating as not thinking at all. Basically, the same result of inaction is what you're talking about. Gotcha.
Yeah. You become too smart. You end up looking at every single thing and then end up often hesitating for too long or just never even pressing that buy button. I can think of so many times that I've had people who had a thesis on a stock, or they're like, hey, this is my thought process. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it. Great. Talk to them months later. Did you end up buying that stock? No, I didn't do it because I got afraid, or, there was some other knowledge I didn't know. And it's tough because at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with knowledge. It has to do with your emotions and that fear of pressing that buy button.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's scary. It's scary risking your money. It's definitely scary. I can think of many times where I had to risk money and I'm like, I'm worried, I'm nervous. Right. And you're right to be. You're right to be. It's a human aspect of it. And that's why,
because if you,
yeah, go for it, please.
No, I was going to say, because a lot of it comes down to that's your life energy. Your money is your life energy. It's time and dedication that you put into making that money. And now you're risking it in the stock market, something that most people don't understand, or even risking it on yourself, or for like a business or to buy something like that. But at every stage of life, you're putting that money into something. You're risking it for something. And do you want to risk it for something that's going to give you an upside return potentially to become more money that can help you to not have to spend your life energy for more money? Or do you want to spend it on a new pair of shoes?
Yeah.
Both things, you're risking something.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And that's why our emotions, actually, this ties perfectly actually into point number 5. Our emotions are rigged in it. The stock market isn't, right? Our emotions play such a heavy part in investing. Most people don't realize it. Most people just don't get it, how emotional the stock market can be. Because like you said, I mean, you're dealing with your life's energy.
Yeah, it's tough. So many people think that the stock market is rigged, or like it's rigged against them. Like whenever I happen to buy in, it always drops. Whenever I happen to sell, it goes up. And that's just not how it works. That's you looking at it. That's the way that you're perceiving it. But the market is not against you. I would probably argue that majority of the world is not against you. No one cares about you, listener.
Yeah.
So
we care.
Yeah, but we care.
Yeah.
But it's it's so difficult, right? Because all of us, we think we're the center of the universe. Like we're the hero of our story. Like we are everything to us. But at the end of the day, if you really think about it, you can like kind of realize like, oh, nothing that I do really matters. And also, whenever someone else makes a decision, like my wife did something, and I could take it as a personal spite against me, or you can just think she was living her life and I just happened to be a part of it. But
Yeah.
so many of us, we put ourselves at the center of everybody's story when at the end of it, most of the time, you weren't even a thought.
No, no, it's so true. It's so true. That's the ego talking that we're the center of our universe when in actuality, we're not. We're not, guys. It doesn't mean you're not special, but dial it back a little bit. Number 6. And then this is group 2. The first group was understanding risk and emotion, and group 2 is investment strategy and planning. Number 6 was no one lives life in the long term. Explain that a little bit for us, Chris.
So whenever we're trying to experience life, I like to think of there's like two selves, right? There's the experiencing self and there's the narrative self. The narrative self, that's the long term. That's the person that you want to be. That's the person that you, when you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, that guy's going to be retired. That guy goes to the gym. That guy does all these cool things. But there's the experiencing self. That's the you right now. That's the person that, if for you to be retired, has to save money today and not buy something. That's the person that has to go to the gym right now. That's the person that has to do the cold plunge. That's the person that actually has to go through all the hard work so that the narrative self can experience all the good things that you want out of life. Yeah. So too many people, they don't live the narrative self. They might tell the story of this is the kind of person I am. I'm the kind of person that goes to the gym. I'm the kind of person that saves money for retirement. I'm the kind of person that does these things. But most people don't live there. Most people live on the experiencing self. I'm the kind of person that tells people to go to the gym, but secretly I just eat donuts and sit around all day watching TV. I'm the kind of person that tells people that I have a great investment portfolio, but truly all I do is live off of credit cards.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a good plan. That's not a good plan. So yeah, you definitely got to be careful where you get your information from. Yeah. That's rough. That's rough. Yeah, I like that one. That might be one of my favorite ones. Not living life for the long term, or no one lives life for the long term. Because I know we plan for the long term so often. Like even going to the gym. Like obviously, I feel like the gym is. I mean, we reference the gym a lot on this podcast because there's so many similarities with the gym and finance. But it's like I know that by working out today, I know I'm probably not going to see a noticeable difference in my physique today. But in a couple months or a couple weeks, I'll definitely see a noticeable difference. But at the same time, it feels good to work out. It feels good to go after what you want in life. And the same can be true about finance. You know, you might save 10%, 20%, 30%, 50% of your income and put it towards the next 50 years or the next, however long you think you're going to live. And I love that. Or you can live for today, right? And I don't know where I'm going with this, but I love that aspect of finance and it being so personal. How you can choose to do whatever you want and there's no specific path forward. And that seems both scary and so awesome at the same time because it's an adventure. At the end of the day, it's an adventure. And I love going on it. I don't know about you guys, but I love saving money. I love investing money. I love just like growing myself, growing my net worth, growing my strategy, working on my strategy, moving money around. I love that aspect. And gamifying it to make it fun is, for me, the only way I can continue doing it. Because if I'm just doing an Excel spreadsheet, not having fun with it, then it's not fun. And we're trying to build a strategy that's for the long term, not just for today, you know? And I think we'll get to another one that references that last statement from me. Any final thoughts on number 6, Chris?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Just remember it's always a balance of living for today and living for tomorrow. But most people are living too much for today. And I would say there's probably people like us, people like me in the past who have lived too far for tomorrow. And it's all about finding that balance for you. And that balance for you is going to change day to day, week to week, hour to hour, most likely. Mm-hmm. So there really is there's no perfect way of it's not like an equation where you can figure out I want to live 40% in the future, 60% right now. It doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't. I wish it does. That'd be interesting. That'd be very interesting. So number 7, a product is not a portfolio, and a portfolio is not a plan. What do you mean by this one?
So let me define what I mean by product, portfolio, and plan. So
Please.
by product, I mean an investment product. So an annuity, in a life insurance policy, maybe even a like mutual fund. So most advisors, historically, not fiduciaries, they work off of selling investment products, saying like this product, once you have this investment, you will be able to do whatever your goals are. And the reason I put it is a product and a single product is not a portfolio. A portfolio is a grouping of all of the assets that you have, all the things that you expect to give you future money. That's all of it. So one product is no way a portfolio. And just because you have a portfolio, just because you have a bunch of things that you expect to give you money in the future, that does not mean that you have a financial plan. That doesn't mean that you have your goals set out. Because a lot of people, they have investment products. Some people, they have portfolios. Some people, a smaller amount, even have plans. Just because you have these three things doesn't mean that you know where your goal is. Doesn't mean that you're trying to get to where you, or that you know where you need to go and what you have to do to reverse engineer to get there. And I said it last time, but majority of personal finance is personal, not finance.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think you're spot on with that one. Most of finance is more on the personal aspect rather than the finance side. And that's tough for people because people don't want to look back. They don't want to see their finances. They don't want to see how much they spent. I mean, even when you ask someone how much they're spending on groceries, how much they're spending on XYZ, on Amazon, they really don't have a right figure. It's always more than they think, right?
Yeah. Typically, when you ask somebody how much are you spending a month in groceries, they'll be like, I don't know, 200, $300. And you actually look at it and it's like double, triple that.
Yeah.
Whenever someone tells me that I have something and they say it ends in a double zero, like, oh, it's like $200, $300. I'm always like, yeah, whatever it is, double it. Like whatever they think
Yeah.
it is, it's double that.
Yeah. And then some. Yeah. Okay, so that was number 7. A product is not a portfolio, and a portfolio is not a plan. We're going on to number 8. There is no such thing as a perfect portfolio. What are you telling me, man? I thought the whole reason was this to discover a perfect portfolio. You're telling me there's no such thing as a perfect portfolio. Tell me. Give me some good news. I need some good news after this bombshell.
I think the best news about this one is I've worked for years trying to figure out what is the quote unquote perfect mix of different investments to put into my portfolio. What are the different products? What are the different everything to make the perfect portfolio and therefore plan? And what I realized is sometimes keeping it simple and just having a diversified portfolio that can perform just as well as doing the perfect mix can get you where you want to go with substantially less stress. Because you have to also quantify how much is this stress, this effort, this time worth to me. And at some point, you're going to stop replacing your time for money. You're going to realize that your time is more valuable than cranking out 1% more, 2% more a year.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. 100,000%. I love that. I love that. Yeah, you got to optimize for your life, not just for the best return. You got to optimize for who you are as a person. If you have all your money in one thing and you look at it every day and it stresses you out, then maybe that's probably not the thing for you, right? And vice versa. So I love that. I love that. Yeah, prioritizing peace of mind is so freaking huge. So freaking huge. I love that one.
Yeah,
So
so much comes down to the sleep well at night test, right? Like if I'm sitting there every day worried about my portfolio, it's probably not. It's definitely, like I can say, it's definitely not the right portfolio for you.
Yeah.
It's not the right asset mix. It's not the right anything. If you're concerned about it 24/7, or if you can't sleep at night because you're worried that it's going to go down X%, then you need to figure something else out. You need to change up that plan because that's not the way that you want to live life. Scared all the time.
correct. Absolutely. Number 9, less is more. Now we know this, we've heard this. This has been an age-old saying, less is more. Simplicity is the key to everything. And I guess it's true in finance as well. Could you give us an example of that one, Chris?
Yes, simplicity in investment strategy often leads to better outcome than complexity. Complexity really is the killer of progress in this instance. I can think of times where I had pretty complex investment strategies. You know, I had options trading, I was doing derivative, like I was doing so many different things. And just because of the amount of time that it took or the amount of dedication, it probably led to worse performance than had I just had a straightforward approach that I chose at the beginning and just continue to do every single day. Because at the end of the day, like you have to put in how much is my time worth? How much is my stress worth? How much is all this stuff worth? And sometimes the best strategy is whatever strategy you're going to stick to, not
Mhm.
whatever's the most optimized, whatever is the best one for you to be able to stick to through thick and thin.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love we know this all the time. Less is more. Keep it simple, get it done. That's pretty much it. So number 10, we're going to move on to number 10. This one is part of group 3. So group 3 is client relations and communications. The next 10 or the next couple of them will be on the next week's podcast, but this is kind of a taste into next week's podcast. So the only client question that matters is, am I going to be okay? That's one of the things you learned in finance. Where did you learn that one from?
I learned that from years of working with people
Mhm.
because everyone would come to me and everyone's situation is completely unique, right? Everyone, some people have more money, some people have less money, some people have different goals. Everyone has something that's different than everyone else. But the one thing that is universal, the one concept that I have found amongst everyone is this question is, am I going to be okay? And most people, they seek reassurance about their financial future. That's the reason that they're coming to a financial advisor. Too
Yeah.
many financial advisors. So this really is me speaking to financial advisors out there. And maybe anyone that comes to you, listener, because I'm sure if you're a listener of the Fi Guys, people often will come to you just because you happen to have a better understanding of money. The reason you have a better understanding of money is because you're interested in it. That's the reason you listen to this podcast, right?
Yeah.
So when people come to you and they ask you, you know, what's the right amount of, how much money should I be saving? You know, what's the right investment strategy for me? What's the right this, right that? What they're really asking, the key question they really want to know is, am I going to be okay financially? Is
Yeah.
my financial future going to be all right? So
True.
when people come to you asking those questions, they don't really care about they don't care about your knowledge. They don't care about, you know, that you're going to come up with the perfect plan, the perfect portfolio, the perfect product. They want to know one important question. Am I going to be okay? And do you have the knowledge, the resources, and the talent and the ability to communicate that, yes, you will be okay, given that we work on whatever strategies you are going to?
Yeah. That is really the age old question. Am I going to be okay? Because that's the only thing that matters to them. And that makes sense. I like that. I like that. Well, with that being said, that is the recap of Monday's episode of the first 10 of the 20 total lessons that Chris has learned from managing money. With that being said, I think we're going to wrap that part up of the podcast. We're going to move on to our 5 Friday feedback viewer mailbag segment. This is a segment where we might get a letter from the community, an email. It's usually an email. We don't take letters, but you get the idea. They come to us with a situation and we give our 2 cents on it. With that being said, let's get right into our viewer mailbag. I'm going to be reading this from the viewer's perspective. So the title says, "From rock bottom to redemption, my shocking battle with alcoholism, $17,000 in debt, and the fight for financial freedom." I like that. We got a bit of a doozy on today's episode. It's going to be an exciting one, to say the least. In an emotional twist that no one saw coming, I am peeling back the curtain on a life-altering struggle that has shaken me to my core. The past year was nothing short of chaos. I found myself in the relentless grip of alcoholism, spiraling out of control, and watching my finances unravel as I drown in a staggering $17,000 of credit card debt. I was caught in a web of addiction, denial, and ignoring the financial storm brewing just outside my door. But what happened was a turning point, a crossroads in my life that would either make or break me. For the past 5 months, while I was undergoing treatment to save my life, I did the unthinkable. I turned a blind eye to my mountain of debt. I thought somehow it would just disappear. Spoiler alert, it didn't. Today, though, the game has changed. I hit a breaking point and stared my demons straight in the face. and made a decision that could rewrite my entire story. Armed with nothing but a modest sum of cash and a sheer determination, I did the impossible and reached out to my creditors. Bold, and I like it. My offer was simple, but bold. Take what I can give you, or leave it. To my shock, nearly all of them agreed to be on a manageable repayment plan. Apple Card, in a surprising twist of fate, handed me a lifeline at 0% APR payment plan, which is a freaking amazing. But that wasn't the whole story. The real beast, the Chase account. They held a staggering $12,000 balance over my head, and negotiations were brutal. In the end, I managed to knock it down to $5,700. That's amazing. I'm not even sure how that's even possible. That's freaking awesome. But there was a catch. I have just 93 days to come up with the money. Okay. The kicker? This chance to settle came courtesy of a modest payout after losing my job. An unexpected gift in the midst of the turmoil. I'm sharing my raw, real story just to clear my head, but also to reach anybody out there who feels stuck, who's avoiding the nightmare of their financial mess. I want you to know one thing. There is hope. If I can make it through this gut-wrenching first call, so can you. It's time to stop running and start taking control, not just of debt, but of your life. Thank you for tuning in and allowing me to bring all this out into the open. This is just the beginning of my fight to reclaim my financial freedom and myself. From I faced my debt, no more regret. For once I was ignored, now I am restored. I like that. Nice little rhyme on the end. I'm a fan of that. I like that a lot. I didn't even know you could call up the credit card companies and ask for help. That's kind of a crazy thing to do. I like that.
We've talked about that before, that you can do it. I always say that it's worth an ask, because the worst thing they can tell you is no. What they're never going to do is be like, oh, since you asked, we're actually going to increase your amount of debt.
Doubling your interest. Yeah,
we're doubling it.
Okay. That's good to know.
So to our listener, do you have anything to say to them? I mean, I don't really think he's even asking for any help. He's just kind of telling us that he got a win of the week.
Yeah, no, actually, yeah, I'm good on you for crushing the alcoholism, continuing your battle. That's a lifelong battle, and I know you got it. And having the discipline to really buckle down and get back in the game after such a pivotal chapter in your life is tough. And to take on the finance, take on the scary banks. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty epic. I commend them. That takes guts to really put yourself out there and tell people your story like that. Most people are very scared about their finances. They don't want to divulge too much. They're ashamed of it. People think that they're going to be judged for how much they make, or they don't make enough, or they make too little. And this guy's just putting it all out there. And I have great respect and great admiration for that. That's awesome. That's really something special. Chris, what do you got for him?
Yeah, the first thing I would want to tell him is, like, I really want you to acknowledge the progress that you made, listener. Like, that's pretty cool that you've done something incredibly brave and incredibly difficult that most people don't do. First off, you faced your addiction. It sounded like it was alcoholism. I don't know what that's like. I have to imagine it's extremely difficult. So you handled that. It sounded like you said you were legitimately fighting for your life. So I don't know if that means like a recovery program or what does that mean, but like you faced that and it sounds like you're overcoming it. And then not only that, you also overcame a financial situation that you found yourself in. And yeah, maybe we can look at it and say you shouldn't have avoided the debt. You shouldn't have done all these things. But at the end of the day, it happened, and that's okay. So we need to celebrate these small little moments, because these small wins are what lead to such big victories over time.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like you said, those small victories, they mean so much. That's the turning point in the entire battle. He said he's in the battle for himself and for financial freedom. And I love that line. That's a great line. Yeah, I would say keep on it, man. Keep watching your credit score, watching your money, and try and save as much as you can. Try and knock out that big Chase debt in those 93 days. That can be crucial. That is just an absolute lifeline to knock it down to basically half. That's huge, to say the least. That's absolutely huge. That's freaking awesome. So freaking awesome.
Yeah. I think it's crazy that he he took on the, like, we talk about it like, oh, you can always call and negotiate, but who actually does it?
Yeah.
So for him to actually do it, to call and like get that done. So for our listener, like, you really need to stick to those repayment plans. Like, good for you for calling and negotiating. And I'm glad that it worked out for you, but now you really need to make sure that you follow through with it. Especially that Chase one, like, you have 93 days. So you need to prioritize getting that one done. Because my guess is if you don't, they're gonna retroactive hit it back, all of it. So I would prioritize that one, especially if they said that the Apple Card one is at a 0% interest for right now. I would just make the minimum payments and put everything that I possibly can at the Chase stuff, and make sure that we're sticking to like a like ham and cheese type of budget. Like, we are not going like beans and rice, like whatever it is. You're not going out. You're not doing anything crazy. You're not spending extra money at the gym, extra money on Netflix or Hulu or HBO Max. All of it is going towards putting as much of it as that debt as you possibly can, because you were just handed such an amazing lifeline. And I would hate to see you lose it for yourself, but I don't think that's going to happen, because you were the one that took the action yourself. You're the one that made that call. You're the one that put in that hard work. So you're going to value it substantially more than someone who never tried and just happened to get their debt resolved for whatever reason.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like you said, there's no negative repercussions from calling the credit card company. Well, so since he's in like a repayment thing and they knocked his debt down a little bit, would that affect his credit score at all, or what do you think?
No, it shouldn't affect his credit score too much, because he's like, if you go into like a debt consolidation type thing where you're consolidating all the debt into one place, that'll be another hard pull. Or if you're going to like a debt negotiator who's going to stop making payments for a while, that would also mess it up, because you're no longer making payments or lowering the amount of debt. But my assumption is, since they chose to just give him 0 APR, he's still making payments on the debt. And then the other Chase decided just to write off the debt. So it sounds like that's just something that's happening outside of the credit score. They're just going to say, hey, if you pay this off, the $5,000 or whatever it is, $6,000, we're just going to forgive the other $6,000. So that does actually bring up an important point, is that I want you to keep in mind that when you write off that debt that's written off in a year is going to be taxable income next year. So that $6,000 or so that gets written off will be added to your income that you quote unquote made this year in 2024. So you're gonna have to pay that in 2025.
Interesting. So you have to pay taxes on that.
Yep, as if it was income, because they're basically giving you a free $6,000.
Yeah.
So you have to pay taxes on that. So they're going to be getting something in the mail. It's going to be called a 1095-C, if I remember correctly. It's a taxable form. They're saying like, hey, we forgave blank amount of debt for you to be like $6,000 or $7,000. So based off whatever your highest marginal tax rate is, just know you're going to have to be taxed on that. So I don't know, that'd be 20 or 30%, depending on what you make.
So it's still a pretty good deal, though.
Well, it's either you pay a little bit less on taxes, or you pay the taxes on it, or you pay the full amount. Don't be so focused on the taxes that you're like, oh no, I'd rather pay the full amount of debt. That's just stupid.
Yeah. So if you're in any amount of debt, give them a call and see if they can write off a portion of it.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Because regardless, the taxes will be smaller than the amount that you have to pay. And think about this: the money that you would have put towards that paying off that $6,000 would have been after-tax money. So you would have had to actually earn like $7,000 or $8,000, then it get taxed, then you pay off $6,000. So either way, you're paying the taxes at some point.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's always better to have that money taken off and have to pay some taxes than not. But so many people get so focused on not paying taxes that they miss the forest through the trees. Yeah. And they get so worried, like, oh, I can't have my debt written off. I'd rather save myself $1,000 on taxes than $10,000 in payments.
Maybe we should do another podcast on that, like how to call the creditors and be like, could you write this off? Like, how does that conversation even go?
I don't know. I've never made that call, but what I have to assume is it's something like this person called and told them, maybe we can get them on the podcast and ask them like precisely like, what did you say? But my assumption would be something to the effect of, hey, I've been really trying hard to make these payments, and at this point, I'm going to declare bankruptcy. So here are the options. I owe you this amount of money. I can pay this, or I'm going to declare bankruptcy. You guys get nothing.
Yeah.
Like, your choice. And it's kind of the same thing that we talked about. Like, the reason I feel like we don't even need to do that is you can go back and listen to the medical debt podcast that we did where I gave scripts on that one of what to say. So it'd probably be the exact same script, just now you're using it for credit card debt.
Yeah, definitely. No, 100%. That's such an interesting. That's so interesting. Yeah. So this isn't a starter move. This is like a last resort to save your credit type move.
I mean, ideally, you don't find yourself in this situation where you're putting on so much debt, but I think it would be one of the first moves that you're going to do once you've like established that like I can no longer make these payments. I would probably first try to, I mean, this is kind of comes from an extreme ownership part of it, and it probably isn't the most correct thing, but for me, it would be first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make more money. I'm going to try to spend less money. If those two things don't work, then I'm going to reach out to the credit company and tell them like I can't do this. But you know, if you're someone who doesn't have that aversion that I do, and you're like, I'm going to call them first and see if they can lower it down, then I'm going to save money and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Then do it that way. But I think it should be all of these things are happening pretty much simultaneously. It should be like, I have to first do this, fail at that, then try this, fail at that, then try this.
Yeah.
You're just making it, you're playing the game on harder than it has to be played.
Definitely. No, 100%. Interesting. What an interesting viewer mailbag. We really appreciate you writing in and telling us your story. Best of luck with all of that. I think with that being said, we're going to transfer over to Win of the Week, our final segment of today's podcast. This is where we share our wins of the week. As you can tell, our listener kind of had a win of the week himself, so we really appreciate that. My win of the week is that Chris has kind of inspired me in the mornings. He does his trail walks with his dogs and whatnot. And I can't really do that in the morning. I have to wake up early to go to work. And correction, I could do it. I just don't want to do it because I enjoy my sleep. So I'm more of a sunset guy more than a morning sunrise guy. So right around sunset, if you see a dom walking in the wild, say hello, say howdy. But I've been doing more walks at sunset to kind of help with the metabolism after a meal. And also it's nice to be out in nature. I've got a wonderful walking path around my neighborhood. Greenery, bunnies, wildlife. I love it. I saw a giant owl a couple days ago. And the day before that, I counted 28 bunnies on my walking path, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, that is my win of the week for me. What about you, Chris? What do you got for win of the week?
So my win of the week, and this is the reason I'm so tired still, is we just got back from New York yesterday, landed in relatively late. But while we were there, my wife reached out to the hotel company or to Hyatt right before we ended up going there, like 2 weeks before. And she sent him an email saying, hey, we see that you guys are celebrating your 10 years of being, this hotel, and we're actually celebrating our 10-year anniversary. So when we got there, they knew it was our anniversary and they provided us a free upgrade. So we ended up getting an upgrade to like this immaculate room. But this whole trip, had we not used points, probably would have cost us over $10,000. And with points, with free upgrades, with everything that we got, we ended up not paying really anything with the exception of airfare and the airfare and food. And the airfare that we paid was half off since we have Southwest Companion Pass. And then the food was the food. There's nothing you can do about reducing the food costs in New York. But
dollar pizza,
it was like
maybe.
a $10,000 trip. Yeah, dollar pizza. But it was like a $10,000 trip that we took for a few $100 plus food.
That's awesome. That's so freaking cool. I love that. It's all about credit card hacking. Sick. So freaking sick. Well, guys, that is going to be it for our podcast today. Guys, just tripping on my words a little bit. We really appreciate you guys being here. If you're not already liking the video, we would appreciate it if you did that right now. If you're on YouTube, if you're not on YouTube, feel free to give us a follow or rate us 5 stars. That would be pretty darn cool of you. If you'd like to see someone who you care about succeed in the financial realm, feel free to send this podcast to them or just send the link. Send them the 5 guys. Be like, hey, I like these guys. Check them out. Simple as that. We would really appreciate that. But with that being said, we'll hope to see you back here on Monday for part 2 of 20 lessons Chris learned while managing money as a professional money manager. With that being said, we hope you guys have an amazing weekend, and we'll see you guys on Monday. Later, guys.
Later.
Peace.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the host and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.